So as you can see, I have Tableau open, and I have the Superstore Sales sample data extract open. And the first thing that we do is we created a simple visualization that has order date as the column and sales as the row. And to do that, I took order date and I dragged it into column. And I took the measure for sales and I dropped it here. And it shows up like that. The other thing that this hands-on did, so what all this did so far was make a simple line chart that plotted the sum of the sales across the years of the order date. Now, we also were asked to do this customer segments being their own lines. To do that, we could have done that several ways. One thing we could have done was to put the customer segment in the rows. That would have given us 4 graphs, each with one segment. But what we wanted was a single graph with 4 lines. And so to do that, we just drop customer segment on color. And it divides the display by the 4 different customer segments. So the next step was to add additional calculations so we saw more than just a sales trend. We're going to look at some variability and some other things. So to do that, we needed to create 3 panes that all were showing some of sales. Now, one thing you could do is you could do shift drag. Can't remember what it is on the Mac. But anyway, you can do that, or you can actually just grab sales and drag it over here twice. So now I've got 3 panes that all have sales. And this one asks for us to change the time scale to month. Remember, Tableau has a lot built into it to be able to handle multiple displays of date. So when it knows that it's a date field, it automatically knows how to divide things up by month, quarter, etc. We want to choose month. And so it makes our graph a little bit longer. And now what we want to do is, instead of just showing all these things being trends, we wanted to show the running total in the middle and the percent difference in the bottom. To do that, we use table calculations. Table calculations are accessed via the drop-down menu on the measure pill. And I'm going to choose add a table calculation. I could choose quick table calculation. But what I want to do is choose add table calculation just so we can discuss it a little bit. I'm going to choose add table calculation. I want to calculate running total. And I want to run it along what? I want to run it along the order date. Okay. And now I've got my running total. And then finally, I want to do percent difference, so I can just do that. Quick table calculation, percent difference. And what percent difference does is it takes every time period in your graph, and it calculates the percent difference from May to April. If we change this to year, now it's calculating percent difference from 2012 to 2011. Or if we went to day, it would be calculating it based upon day of the month. But we're going to leave this at month. Now the next step in the hands-on was to change the graphs to be stacked columns. Now to do that, there's several ways, but we're just going to use show me. I'm going to just change it to stack columns. And now notice, interestingly, this is something that happens sometimes with Tableau. I changed the graph type, and you'll notice that this pane, which used to be the top, it was our sum of sales, is now on the bottom. So let's just shift it back. I don't know really why that happens in Tableau, but I think it's just a little bit of a feature there. And so now it should look like this. The next thing that the hands-on asked us to do was to add some reference lines. And to add a reference line, sometimes we want to annotate our graphs so that they give the viewer more information. I'm just going to choose to add a reference line. I'm going to want to do it per pane. And I just want to use the average for this one. I'm going to hit apply. And notice that it comes over here. You can also do a manual manual reference line that's not based upon a calculation by choosing add a reference line and then choosing a constant. And I'm just going to choose to make that constant 21 million. And you can give it the label which is the value itself, or you could actually give it a label like this, which we're just going to call quota. Okay, now we're going to move on and we're going to deal with continuous data. Remember that when we were working with the data in this example, all of the data for each column is all the Januaries across all years, all the Februaries. And it's not actually showing the trend across the entire 4-year time period because it can't. It's being done by month. If we had wanted it to do that, we would have done year then month. But let's talk about how we showed data that's based upon the exact date. I'm going to start a whole new sheet. We're going to basically do the same sheet a little bit differently with using continuous data. So I'm going to create a new sheet and I'm going to call it continuous. Continuous. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to drop the order date on the columns. I'm going to drop the sales on the rows. I'm going to show the data by month. I'm going to bring in my customer segments. And I'm going to switch now from discrete dates to exact dates. So I clicked on the drop down here for the month, switching to exact date, and this is where I start. Okay. Now let's create those other panes like we did before. I'm going to create 2 more panes with the sum of the sales. And on this one, I'm going to do a running total. And on the bottom one, I'm going to do a moving average. Now what the hands-on asked us to do was to change that moving average a little bit. It asks us to make the moving average be every 30 days. Now to shift that moving average, we are going to edit the table calculation. You see here that we have the moving average and we have the previous values too. It's currently moving average, we're using the last 2 values. We could use 30 days before, we could use 15 days before, 15 days after. However you want to do it, we're going to use just 30 days before for now. And we're going to hit apply. And we get the moving average. The last thing that we wanted to do with this part of the hands-on was to shift this to being something that's actually divided up by year, because right now our running total is going overall 4 years. We might wish to show it with the running total starting each year. So to do that, all we have to do is in our table calculation, to edit the table calculation, and we're going to choose sum, running along order date, restarting every year of order date. And that'll automatically change all 3 of the panes to restart on the year of the order date. And that's the end of the hands-on from session 3.